Hello. Well, we have another example of university nuttery, and I have just remembered that I saw a photograph of some students demonstrating outside Sussex University about Kathleen Stock, the professor who had to resign because there was a big fuss. She didn't believe trans women were real women. And this made her a terrible person. And I remember seeing, and I'll try and find it and I'll put it up here, one of the press photographs, and it showed a student holding up a sign saying, "We were supposed to be safe here," or something like that. And it's just, perfectly ridiculous thing for a student to hold up. Was Kathleen Stock saying that trans students should be, tarred and feathered and run out on a rail or other violence done to them? No, she was saying no such thing. She was just saying she didn't think they were really women. And the students started clutching their pearls and having nervous breakdowns over her opinion. Now we've got another example of another professor. It says here, Cambridge Union launches Stalinist blacklist after speaker's Hitler impersonation. I think that's wonderful. What's his name? Andrew Graham Dixon. He performed an impression of Adolf Hitler during a debate on good taste. I didn't see that. So it was a debate on good taste. And he did a Hitler impression. I will read on. I haven't read, I've just seen that top bit there. So I'm almost as new to this article as you are. The Cambridge Union has launched a Stalinist, and that's in quotes, so it means somebody said it. I don't know who, maybe the professor. Blacklist of speakers it will never invite to address students again. Oh, never again. In the wake of a cancel culture row over an art historian who performed a Hitler impression during a debate. Now, I don't know what sort of Hitler impression he performed, but I mean, if he was actually calling for the students to rise up and start killing people, I'd say he probably shouldn't be in the debate. But somehow, I don't think Andrew Graham Dixon, the art historian, was going to be actually saying anything like that. Keir Bradwell, that's the student president of the 200-year-old debating society. Rolling down. This is Keir Bradwell. What a nice, fresh-faced young man he is, with his nice sweater with a shirt underneath it. How very refined, how very middle of the road. Well, I believe Stalin actually trained to be a priest, didn't he? Keir Bradwell, the student president of the 200-year-old debating society, emailed members on Monday to inform them he was setting up a blacklist. So this nice, fresh-faced young man is actually a Stalinist. Emailed members on Monday setting up a blacklist of speakers that would include Andrew Graham Dixon, an art historian who offended students with a Nazi impersonation last week. So he offended students. I think the big problem started when students had to pay. Before that, you went to university at the expense of the state, and it was a favour the state granted you, allowing you to go to university. Now students pay. And for that reason, they are consumers. I'm talking about Britain, by the way. I believe that students have been paying in America for hundreds of years or whatever. Just a minute, cough break. Oh, dear. I got this cold. I was on granny duty last week and I got this cold off my 6-year-old granddaughter. Okay, so where was I? Yeah, so students have become consumers, and they have the feeling now that they can tell the professors what to do, how to act, and what to teach and how to teach it. which of course is like letting the inmates run the asylum. Students complained, did they, after Mr. Graham Dixon used racial slurs in a debate about whether it was possible to have good taste. He did an impression of Adolf Hitler to demonstrate the Nazis had bad taste because they rejected some art because they were racist. So here was this teacher arguing that Nazis had bad taste and they are cancelling him. You know, I don't know where these students' brains are. I really don't. I have to explain to Americans that you don't pay any more to go to Cambridge than you do to go to, I don't know what, Manchester University or Leeds University or any of the so-called red brick universities. You just pay a flat rate for being a student, as far as I know anyway. So people who go to Cambridge are there because they have passed a lot of exams, not because their daddies are rich. Or their mummies. Let's be even about this. And so you expect a certain level of intelligence and even intellectual toughness from people who go to Cambridge. Obviously, this is changing because they were offended by this guy doing probably a very bad impression of Adolf Hitler to show that Nazis had bad taste. Mr. Bradwell, this is Mr. Bradwell again, who describes himself as a conservative. Oh, no, he isn't. But he is wearing a conservative outfit, I have to admit. Wrote that he would create a blacklist of speakers never to be invited back. And we will share it with other unions too. Adding, Andrew will be on that list. Look, Cambridge, you had better do something about this guy because he sounds like a dictator in waiting. I mean, look, he's got this fresh, wholesome face. And as has been said before, Stalin trained to be a priest, didn't he? There's no sign of what? Ho Chi Minh was a cook. Oh, more people coming, I don't know. Ho Chi Minh was a cook in Paris. Did you know that? Okay. He also said he would institutionalize firm definitions of racism. And more widely, I will intervene if and when I feel it is part of my duty to our members and audience to do so. No, 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 no. It is not your duty to intervene. If somebody in a debate is going to hang himself with bad thoughts, then you should let him hang himself. And students should be able to argue back. Is this a debating society or just a recitation of politically correct opinions? Sorry, cough break. I should have brought a glass of water, shouldn't I? Mr. Bradwell was forced to apologise on Saturday for not intervening. You see, it's the other students. Instead of him telling the other students, look, suck it up. It's a debating society. They got offended. And so now he's just following the party line, isn't he? For not intervening to cut off Mr. Graham Dixon. That's an interesting thought. Students had called for his resignation from the society, which has historically been viewed as a bastion of free speech. I'm going to get some water. Hang on. Okay, I'm back. The Telegraph understands the blacklist will only apply to speakers who have already visited the union and whom its student officers feel have harmed students. Well, you see, they've harmed them. Harmed them in what way? Ideas should not harm a university student. They shouldn't harm anyone. Only if the ideas involve violence. If they involve somebody else's opinions, then there is no harm. There is just intellectual stimulation. Right. A representative declined to give a list of other banned speakers, although it's understood a list has already been drawn up. So there's a secret list of people that these students will refuse to hear from now on. The move comes after a row in 2019 when the union's president announced he would not invite Nigel Farage to give a speech. Well, how very virtuous of him. Andrew Lowney, a former president of the Cambridge Union and biographer of the Soviet spy Guy Burgess, described the blacklist as Stalinist. He's the one. Yep, Andrew Lowney, I agree with you 100%. I think this is appalling, he said. There have always been controversial speakers, and indeed the presidents invite controversial speakers to get attention for their programme. Yeah, well, controversy is the stuff of intellectual progress, isn't it? But the point is they're allowed to debate in open debate and make their case. And undergraduates are able to challenge it. I think it's a very depressing development. And what's going on here is we are teaching our university students that there is no debate about things. There's just no debate. There are no challenges. There's just hurty feelings. And that's it. This sounds rather Stalinist, says Lowney, and goes against the whole ethos of the union and why it was set up and, until recently, flourished. Quite. And it won't flourish. I mean, why should you go there to... people stopped going to church because they got bored with just sitting there making responses to done and dusted ideas. That's why people get bored when that happens, when they're expected to just regurgitate the same stuff again and again and hear it regurgitated back. Well, just a minute. Shakespeare, I'm going to quote Shakespeare again, if I can remember it, that little song of his in, was it As You Like It, When Icicles Hang by the Wall? And he talks about, and ways befell, and coughing drowns the parson's saw. Saw meaning, like sort of, like the sound of a saw, sort of, oh, that's going to make me cough again. Just when you're saying the same old cliches again and again, and, you've said them so often, your voice is losing expression. That's basically a saw. And Shakespeare already knew about that 500 years ago, however long he was living, 400 years ago, whatever. And that's what the union will turn into if this fresh-faced youth, Keir Bradwell, has his way. And then Bradwell gets a chance to respond here. In a statement, Mr. Bradwell said his role entailed balancing the protection of freedom of speech with looking after union members, which he said could be conflicting objectives. So you see, that's what's going on. Bradwell thinks he's their nanny, and he's trying to balance the protection of freedom of speech with looking after the hurty feelings of his colleagues. Now, you can't, what do you mean? Could be conflicting. It is conflicting. You can't have freedom of speech and a lack of hurting people. It just doesn't, it's that old irresistible force and immovable object thing. You can't do it. Bradwell, you have to decide. Are you going to allow freedom of speech, or are you going to protect hurty feelings? And I want to tell you something now. Take it from me. When you protect hurty feelings, you don't get anything. Because somebody is going to be hurt by all sorts. So when my son was a student in Cambridge, one of his tutors said to him that he was going to hell. That is, my son was going to hell because he said he didn't believe in the divinity of Jesus Christ. Now, that was the tutor's opinion. It was an honestly held opinion. He didn't believe you could be saved unless you believed in Jesus. My son had another opinion. They didn't come to blows about it, and my son got good grades in that course. It wasn't like the tutor was taking it out. My son took it that way, And so did I. He told me about it. He thought it was rather amusing, and I thought it was too. But it was nothing to get hurty about. It was an honestly held opinion. Okay, yeah, I've gone off the subject. He added, one way I am keen to make it easier and help future presidents draw the line. So he has a legacy to hand on to future presidents. They don't have to think now because he's thinking for them. He's going to set parameters and they'll stick to it. That's what he thinks. Well, as I said, Stalin started off life as a priest, probably just as fresh-faced as this kid, is by ensuring that the speakers who have come here and caused students or the institution great difficulty, whether that's by placing very young adults at the heart of national media controversies as a result of their conduct, or in the worst instance, making students feel physically uncomfortable after an event, are kept on record. All right, well, excuse me while I snooze a bit because that actually put me to sleep. What sort of a mind does this kid have? In my opinion, it's not a mind that should be at Cambridge. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Graniopteryx design or Granbo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.graniopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share.